All right, folks, well, we all know that the Obama administration is no stranger to going Hollywood, and neither is the Pentagon. So it wasn't long before directors came knocking on the White House door, looking to capture the heroic efforts of the SEAL Team 6 raid in the next great Hollywood blockbuster. However, the details of what exactly happened that night were kept tight-lipped for the sake of national security. Until now. It appears the White House granted Hollywood filmmaker, Oscar winner Catherine Bigelow access to those involved in planning the raid and some of the methods they used to do it. That's according to newly released government documents. So much for national security. Now, we've seen the huge boost President Obama received after announcing the death of Osama bin Laden. So is this just a big PR move by the Obama administration to generate votes come November? And when did Hollywood get all the access to our national security secrets? To answer that and more, political White House reporter Josh Gerstein joins me now. Josh, what was the point of saying, you know, this is all national security, let's keep this all secret, if they're just going to grant it to Hollywood and they're going to put it in a movie?
Well, it is really puzzling. You may remember there was a big burst of publicity a day or two after the SEAL team raid that killed Osama bin Laden. And then all of a sudden, at least publicly, the administration put the brakes on and said, look, there's been too much talk about this. It's getting out of hand. No more information should be put out. We're troubled by what's come out already. Well, it turns out behind the scenes, they continue to meet with these Hollywood filmmakers and to give them at least some sort of pretty interesting special access, not just to the decision makers involved, but even to some of the secret places that the CIA used to get ready for this raid.
What do you think this says about the relationship between Hollywood and government? I mean, is this an unprecedented thing, or have they done this before, maybe in the Flight 93 movie, or is this kind of unprecedented?
I don't think it's totally unprecedented. I mean, Hollywood, there are whole units at the Defense Department that are set up to just interact with Hollywood and the kinds of war-related movies that are made. What's unique here, I think, is to have the government coming out and saying, we can't release this information for national security reasons, and then have private meetings where they're at least cooperating with Hollywood. And the interesting thing is they told the Hollywood people they needed to keep this on the QT because they feared the bad publicity that came in the last 24 hours when all this became public.
Josh, you know, it is interesting that Hollywood is getting this exclusive access after they said they can't release any details to the public. I mean, first they said that they had live feeds going on all the helmets of all the SEAL Team 6, and they haven't really provided any evidence put forward to solidify their story. Do you think that this movie is just going to be kind of cementing this unfounded, fantastical story that the government has put forward?
Well, I don't really think it's a fantastical story. I think the story has come out in dribs and drabs in different places, in New Yorker magazine articles, in TV stories right after the raid happened. You're right, there was quite a bit of discrepancies in the early accounts of what happened in this raid. But there's no question that the reason that the Pentagon and the CIA cooperated with these filmmakers was because they thought it was going to be a positive portrayal of what had gone on here. They really trusted Bigelow because of the Hurt Locker movie, and they decided that these were people who were worth collaborating with in order to make a very positive movie, at least until this became controversial, and now they seem to have backed away from the whole deal.
Josh, you don't think it's fantastical? I mean, the story changed so many times. I lost track. First, using the wives as human shields. I mean, I don't even really know what the final story is. I mean, has the press been given? Is the press privy to information that I don't maybe know about that solidifies what the government says to be true?
I mean, as you say, the story did change. I think some of the initial reports, a lot of them come out based on anonymous sources, so you don't really know if those are people who actually know what happened or not, or if they know what happened and are telling something that's not true. The story did change pretty dramatically, the public one that the White House offered from day one to day two on issues like the human shield and so forth. But I don't think there's anybody really disputing the basic idea that U.S. commandos went in there and killed Osama bin Laden. I think it's pretty evident that that happened, and it seems like overall, save for a helicopter that went down, a pretty successful mission, and that's basically why the administration cooperated. Of course, one side bonus here was that this movie was supposed to come out just before President Obama would be up for re-election, and some of those involved have now gone on to work in the president's election campaign.
I still find it interesting. I mean, you might say it's undisputed, but it is interesting that they did not provide any evidence, even DNA evidence. I mean, why not? But Josh, let's talk a little bit about the timing, like you just said. I mean, this is coming up right in the midst of this re-election cycle. You know, they did postpone the date to December, but I mean, there's probably going to be trailers playing over and over again around the time of the election.
Right, there's no question this is a story that the White House wanted to tout. In fact, I think some of the confusion you saw in the early accounts wasn't actually because the White House deliberately wanted to put out false information. They were just so eager to get this story out because they thought it was such a beneficial story for President Obama and help change the narrative from sort of Democrats being weak on national security and can't be trusted on issues like Guantanamo to a triumphant president who had killed bin Laden, something that his predecessor had not been able to do. So there's no question this is a very politically potent story. So whenever you hear about secret deals being made to give certain people information in a way that might benefit the public narrative, you do have to wonder if there's some political motivation here.
Do you think that it will be historically accurate, or do you think that this will just be kind of, you know, like you said, I mean, just putting Obama in this amazing light, like he's this hero? I mean, you can argue if that's historically accurate or not. I mean, I guess it depends on what your philosophy is.
I don't know how much of a hero he is. I mean, he didn't carry out the raid himself. He made a decision that others may or may not have made. There's already been a debate with Mitt Romney about who would or wouldn't have made this, quote, gutsy call. You do see that in the papers that were released in the last few days, that the Pentagon and the CIA were pushing the line that the president had made a gutsy decision. But whether it's historically accurate, there's no particular reason to think that it will be, because the Pentagon, when this became controversial, apparently last summer, seems to have cut off the filmmakers' access to information. So they may now have to rely on sort of secondhand and retired officials to try to figure out what happened.
It is also interesting that, you know, when Hillary Clinton was addressing the specifics about the raid, she said, this isn't really unusual. I mean, we've probably done this kind of thing about 1,000 times. And you have to ask yourself, I mean, what, night raids, just going in there, just indiscriminately, you know, taking people out? I mean, it was a very interesting statement. So yeah, you could argue the hero card or not, but it is interesting that this apparently happens all the time, and you know, only when they have this kind of person to put up in the limelight, which is the bin Laden thing, that's when we hear about it, and it's really pressed on us. Josh, really quickly though, I mean, how long do you think that Obama's really going to use this bin Laden killing? I mean, we just saw him do the victory lap at Bagram.
Right.
How long could this really be used for, all the way up until his reelection? I mean, do you think this is really going to work to get him reelected?
I don't think this alone would get him reelected, although I think it does underscore sort of a theme of competency that the White House is hoping will spill over from the national security arena into the economic arena. But if you think about what foreign policy issues are likely to be significant through the fall and into the November election, there's no reason to think terrorism he won't claim.
So sorry, we have to wrap up. That was political White House reporter Josh Gertstein.